Hello, it's me and Kyle here to do your reading lesson for today. I just picked him up and he was sleeping, and I think he just went right back to sleep. Okay, well, Kyle's gonna say goodbye. Bye, everybody. Okay, now he's gonna lay down on my lap while I do our reading lesson. All right, so today, this is our last day of this week's reading I can statement, which is I can read and ask myself questions about the text and use specific evidence from what I read to answer my questions. So this is that last day. I'm going to read another chapter because of Winn-Dixie. Today when I read, I'm going to model again what it looks like to stop and ask yourself a question about what you're reading. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the last 2 pages, and I'm going to post those 2 pages on Google Classroom. And what I'd like you to do today is once you're done listening to the chapter, I'd like you to reread the last 2 pages of this chapter. And in the comment stream below today's lesson, I would like you to post one question and answer, one question about what you read in those 2 pages, and then evidence from the text to answer. Finally, after that for today, you're going to do your 20 to 30 minutes of reading of your own text and finishing out that weekly reading journal. If you didn't get to it every day this week, please don't worry about that. I would just like to see what you're up to, give you a little feedback. I know everyone's situation's different right now, so no pressure on totally completing that journal. If you've made a plan with your family to do a certain amount or do it certain days, I'm understanding that right now. Right now, what I just want to do is kind of be checking in and seeing where everyone's at, because I really am trying to determine that tempo of the class. So seeing what you're doing weekly will help me figure out how to plan in the future. So again, please no stress. This is kind of like homework on Thursday night. I really don't want you saying, oh my gosh, my weekly reading log is due today and I haven't done anything all week. I have to sit down and do one for every day. Please don't do that. You can just write me a little note, tell me about what happened this week, and then just do your Friday log, or if you did one every day this week, awesome. That's great too. So please, again, take away that stress on yourself and just share with me what you got done. If you didn't even get a chance to do any of them, maybe just write me a note about what you've been reading this week, and that'll even help me kind of determine where you're at and what access you've gotten. Okay. Now he's trying to climb out the window. We'll see if I can do this. All right, so we are at chapter 3 because of Winn-Dixie. I started in on Winn-Dixie right away, trying to clean him up. First, I gave him a bath. I used the garden hose and some baby shampoo. He stood still for it, but I could tell he didn't like it. He looked insulted, and the whole time he didn't show me his teeth or wag his tail once. After he was all washed and dried, I brushed him good. I used my own hairbrush and worked real hard on all the knots and patches of fur stuck together. He didn't mind being brushed. He wiggled his back like it felt pretty good. The whole time I was working on him, I was talking to him, and he listened. I told him how we were alike. See, I said, you don't have any you don't have any family, and neither do I. I've got the preacher, of course, but I don't have a mama. I mean, I have one, but I don't know where she is. She left when I was 3 years old. I can't hardly remember her. And I bet you don't remember your mama much either, so we're almost like orphans. Winn-Dixie looked straight at me when I said that to him, like he was feeling relieved to finally have somebody understand his situation. I nodded my head at him and went on talking. I don't even have any friends, because I had to leave them all behind when we moved here from Whatley. Whatley's up in North Florida. Have you ever been to North Florida? Winn-Dixie looked down at the ground, like he was trying to remember if he had. You know what, I said, ever since we moved here, I've been thinking about my mama extra hard, more than I ever did when I was in Whatley. Winn-Dixie twitched his ears and raised his eyebrows. I think the preacher thinks about my mama all the time, too. He's still in love with her. I know that because I heard the ladies at church in Watley talking about him. They said he's still hoping she'll come back, but he doesn't tell me that. He won't talk to me about her at all. I want to know more about her, but I'm afraid to ask the preacher. I'm afraid he'll get mad at me. Winn-Dixie looked at me hard, like he was trying to say something. What? I said. He stared at me. You think I should make the preacher tell me about her? Winn-Dixie looked at me so hard he sneezed. I'll think about it, I said. I'm going to pause here and ask myself a question. I'm wondering if you all have a question right now that you're thinking about. I want you to kind of think about it in your head. Is there a question that you have about the text? So my question right now is, what I'm really thinking is Opal's talking to a dog, talking to Winn-Dixie, but she's talking to him as if he's responding to her, even though he's not talking. So my question is, does Opal think that Winn-Dixie is answering her questions? Does Opal think that Winn-Dixie's actually responding to what she's saying to him? So I'm going to go back and look for some evidence in my text. So I'm going to go back to the first page because I remember seeing something. And it was when Winn-Dixie told, when Opal told Winn-Dixie that they were like orphans because neither of them could remember their mom. And she says, Winn-Dixie looked straight at me when I said that to him, like he was feeling relieved to finally have somebody understand his situation. So I would say from that evidence, Opal does think that Winn-Dixie is understanding and answering or responding to her. So if my question was, does Opal think that Winn-Dixie is answering her or responding to her? My answer right now would be yes, because she said he looked straight at her like he was feeling relieved that somebody understood his situation. I can keep going. There's so much evidence to this question, to my answer of yes, Opal thinks that. It says Winn-Dixie looked down at the ground like he was trying to remember if he had been up to North Florida. She says he twitched his ears and raised his eyebrows in response. She said that he looked at her hard like he was trying to say something. And then she says he looked at me so hard he sneezed. So there's all these examples to show that Opal is looking at Winn-Dixie's actions, and she's kind of thinking that those actions are showing that he's understanding what she's saying. So really finding that evidence to support my answer. When I was done working on him, Winn-Dixie looked a whole lot better. He still had his bald spots, but the fur that he did have cleaned up nice. It was all shiny and soft. You could still see his ribs, but I intended to feed him good, and that would take care of that. I couldn't do anything about his crooked yellow teeth because he got into a sneezing fit every time I started brushing them with my toothbrush. And finally I had to give up. But for the most part, he looked a whole lot better. And so I took him into the trailer and showed him to the preacher. Daddy, I said. He said. He was working on a sermon and kind of muttering to himself. Daddy, I wanted to show you the new Winn-Dixie. The preacher put down his pencil and rubbed his nose, and finally he looked up. Well, he said, smiling real big at Winn-Dixie. Well, now, don't you look handsome? Winn-Dixie smiled back at the preacher. He bent over and put his head in the preacher's lap. He smells nice, too, said the preacher. He rubbed Winn-Dixie's head and looked into his eyes. Daddy, I said real quick before I lost all my nerve. I've been talking to Winn-Dixie. Is that right? The preacher said. He scratched Winn-Dixie's head. I've been talking to him, and he agreed with me that since I'm 10 years old, you should tell me 10 things about my mama. Just 10 things, that's all. The preacher stopped rubbing Winn-Dixie's head and held real still. I could see him thinking about pulling his head back into his shell. 1 thing for each year I've been alive, I told him. Please? Winn-Dixie looked up at the preacher and kind of gave him a nudge with his nose. The preacher sighed. He said to Winn-Dixie, I should have guessed you were going to be trouble. Then he looked at me. Come on, Opal, he said, sit down, and I will tell you 10 things about your mama. So what I would like you to do, please look at the attachment right below this video. On that attachment is going to be 2 pages of Because of Winn-Dixie. And when you reread those 2 pages, the last 2 pages I just read, I would like you to think of one question you have about what you read. And then please post an answer in the comment field, one question and then an answer with your evidence. What I would like to see in the comment field is, in the comment section, is for each other to read each other's answers so we can kind of start a class conversation around our questions and our answers. So if you see someone else wrote a question that you wanted to respond to, again, you might be your own opinion, but then you need to have that evidence to back it up from the text. So again, I could have said, when I asked myself, does Opal think Winn-Dixie's responding to her? Maybe I just said, no, I don't. Because he's just raising his ears and eyebrows, and dogs do that all the time. And he looked at her, but dogs look at people. So you could have a different opinion. You just need that evidence in the text to back up your opinion, to answer your question. All right. Have fun. Good luck. If you have any questions, again, you can write a comment to me and I will respond to you tomorrow. Have fun on your own reading today. Remember to be pausing and asking yourself questions while you're reading for your 20 to 30 minutes. And I will see you soon. Bye-bye.